So today we're going to be taking a look at a plugin that basically replicates internet audio compression. With that said, let's dive into it. So what's up guys, welcome back to the channel, Chris here. So like I said, we're going to be checking out a plugin that basically emulates internet compression. Not the type of compression that an actual audio compressor will do, but this is more the use of a codec, upscaling and downscaling audio depending on what your internet connection is like. This in turn can give you some really wild and wacky degradation style effects. Also, this is an episode of Free and Awesome, so this plugin is absolutely free. You can go and check it out. I'll link it in the description below. This is the plugin. It's called Codec by a company called Lese, L-E-S-E. I came across it when I was working on a project a couple months back, and it does, again, some super wild and wacky things. It will be easier to just demonstrate what's going on here because it all gets very technical. So let's dive into it. Also, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and the bell below. All the support really helps. But moving on, we've got Codec. It's a super interesting plugin, but I would tread with caution because I feel like it can very easily get out of hand. And I feel like the best use of it is when you have some form of contrast. I wouldn't put it on the whole mix type thing. You might use it as maybe a transition effect or something, but I really like having something that's quite messed up and something that's quite clean playing alongside it. But moving on, let's see what it sounds like. So to demonstrate this, I've got a drone. I've made a couple of these drones on my OP1 raw. It just sounds like this. Right, so just a bunch of noise in the key of E. And now I'm going to turn this on. I'll keep everything at default and we'll see what it sounds like. So you can hear there, it's crispy, it's glitchy, it's doing all kinds of madness. It all kind of works together. Basically how this plugin works is it's using an internet style codec. It's actually the same codec that you would find on something like Discord when you're having an online chat. But in this case, it works in real time, changing the different types of effects such as the bitrate and the level of loss that you get, all of that glitchy sound. And I just find it super interesting, and it's a very, I would say a unique plugin. You can find similar things like Goodhertz do a similar kind of thing with their plugin Lese, but maybe that's a bit more in depth. This is a lot more just whatever you can throw at it, it will spit out something interesting back. And yeah, there's not too much going on besides what you can see on the screen. We do in here have a different type of codec mode. There's voice and there's music, and they work slightly differently, but at the end of the day, it's audio degradation. So whichever one you want to stick with, go ahead with it. So we heard what it's doing on this drone. I want to show you quickly what it does to a drum beat because it can provide some really interesting effects. Here I've got, I'll turn it off for now, but I've basically got this break which I've chopped up. And then I've just taken hats from another break. So we've got a mix of those two, and together we get this. Now I've got codec only on the kick snare pattern. So I'm going to turn it on, we'll pull that mix down to 0 and we'll feed it in and you'll see what's going to add. Adding a load of crunch and just some really interesting kind of low mid sound to the drums. If I turn off those hi-hats, so we're just listening to the kick and snare, we can analyze this a bit deeper. With the drums, I do really like just playing with that mix, not having it 100% because it can really be a bit over the top. But in this case, it just really helps to give a little bit more character to your sound. We can play with that loss. You can hear what it's doing there if I put on random. once you get into the repeats, it's a bit super crazy, especially when you want to try keep the rhythm together. So I'm going to leave this off and we can experiment with this bitrate. Now this bitrate and this bandwidth actually work together. Normally this is on auto, and basically as you pull this bitrate down, the bandwidth starts to close off. So it's almost adding a filter to remove a lot of the top end to basically help with all the kind of harsh brightness that is added when you start to pull down that bitrate. But if you don't want it to be automatic, you can actually set how much of a filter it's adding. At 20 kilohertz being completely open, whereas at 4 kilohertz it's basically closed off. So I'll just demo what that sounds like. We'll keep it fully open and I'll start to close it off. Let's try it on a different source. I was working on a beat earlier and I thought it might add a little bit of an interesting character to the pads and possibly even the vocals that I've got. I'll just play the example of what we've got and then we'll dive into it. You think you can fit? I'm doing just fine. You think you can change? I'll change time. You think you can fit? So there we go, that's the beat. Now let's check out what I'm using Codec on in this example. Basically 3 synths, 2 of them are the same patch. I've just slightly tweaked one of them. And the one that is quite tweaked is this one. It's basically this patch. But I've got it sidechained and gated to that bass line. So on its own, it sounds like this. But then with that bass, it sounds like this. And I'm using Codec to basically add a little bit of crispiness, just a bit of edge to the sound. We're pulling back a lot on the bit rate and using a bit of that loss, and especially this width section, which allows you to push a certain frequency with loads of gain into this kind of internet codec and basically adds a real lot of character to it. So if I really crank it, you hear what it's doing. So just adding a lot of that kind of middle crunch. I don't have it on fully wet because it will be a bit excessive, so I've pulled that back and it's just adding a little bit of flavor. And I'm also using it on this vocal chop over here. This would probably be a good place to show off an example. So it sounds like this. And without it. So it's actually making it slightly more mono, bringing that into the center and just pulling back a little bit of that fidelity. I mean, I'm using Little Alter Boy to shift it an octave up, but otherwise it's giving me a lot of this kind of crunchy. You can hear it almost morphing. You can hear all of that super crunchy character. And I really like it for just adding something interesting to the sound. Okay, you know what, screw it. I'm just, for the sake of the video, I'm just going to put it on the whole song, see what it sounds like. It's going to sound really messy, but let's work with it and see what we can get it to sound like. You think you can fit? I'm doing just fine. You think you can change? I'll change time. I'm doing just fine. You think you can change? I'll change time. You think you can change? I'm doing just fine. You think you can change? I'm changing. So there you go, a little bit of weird and wacky for you. If you're interested in this plugin, I will leave a link in the description below so you can go check it out. Just remember, it's free. So even if you want to try it, maybe you don't like it and you want to get rid of it, it's not going to cost you anything, but might provide you with a little bit of extra inspiration if you want to try make some really weird sounds, even for sound design. Or, you know, I tried with that drone, actually, I had tried sticking some reverb and delay on the end of it after the codec. So when I'm pulling back on all of this lostness, it starts to add almost a bit of a soundscape type thing. I can pull that back and create a really interesting ambience. So there you have it. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button below. The support really helps, and thank you to anyone who's already done so. I make a variety of different types of videos on this channel, so feel free to check out any of the playlists I've got, and maybe you'll find something you're interested in. But other than that, I've been Chris Vella, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
You think
Bye.
you can fix it? I'm doing just fine.